Thank you. 6 Democrats on the Senate Homeland Security Committee are pushing back against an expected vote to subpoena a Democratic consulting firm in the committee's investigation into Hunter Biden. It's so tiring. The move came the day before.
Because, can I just say?
Yeah.
Can I just say, Willie?
Yeah.
Because when we're in the middle of a pandemic.
This is important.
The worst pandemic.
It's a human catastrophe.
That has shredded America's homeland.
Triggering a depression.
What you want from the Senate head of the Homeland Security Committee, more investigations on Hunter Biden. That's what America's calling for right now. Boy, this is a real winner for the Republican Party, isn't it?
We just come back to the conversation with Claire McCaskill, who we just asked, are these Republicans going to go along with what President Trump wants pushed during this election? In this case, the answer is yes. That move came the day before the vote is set to happen. In a letter to Chairman Ron Johnson, the 6 Democrats point out the committee is not holding hearings on the Trump administration's COVID-19 response, instead focusing on election year politics and participating in the president's campaign to go after Joe Biden. For the record, the full committee has held at least 2 hearings on the federal interagency response and preparing for future global pandemics. Top Democrat on the committee, Gary Peters, released a statement to NBC News that reads in part, the vote appears to be focused on generating headlines. Chairman Johnson also released a statement saying in part, the public deserves to know what really happened. Donnie Deutsch joins our conversation, along with USA Today opinion columnist and former senior advisor for the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Kurt Bardella. He's a Morning Joe contributor. His latest piece for NBC News,
Willie,
is entitled Senate Republicans. Yes.
Yeah, just hold on a second. Let's do a split screen of Kurt and Donnie Deutsch. Now, Kurt has really upped his game.
Thought about stuff
this is like he's a really good background.
And Donnie's at the dentist.
But Donnie Deutsch back in the dentist chair.
Wait, with bananas.
What's the banana thing?
Yeah, but because that's not hygienic. I think no dentist is going to.
No stickers.
No dentist is going to have bananas right next to where you spit in that little thing that goes around. Okay, so yeah, Donnie's not upping his game, but Kurt, man.
That's good stuff.
That's good stuff there, Kurt. I'm sorry, Willie. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, the fire is outstanding. He's got his own Morning Joe monitor. Donnie, we should point out Donnie's dentist. It's a cosmetic dentist, unlicensed. Just a friend of his from the Hamptons will whiten your teeth for you. So we should be very clear about that. So they put the produce out for their patients. Donnie, you look great, buddy.
Yeah.
So Kurt, I was mentioning his latest piece for NBC News Think, entitled Senate Republicans Aim to Turn Biden-Burisma Conspiracy Theories into 2020's Benghazi. Kurt, you have worked in the United States Congress on oversight. What's your view of Ron Johnson now looking into Hunter Biden and Burisma at this moment, obviously at the either explicit or implicit direction of President Trump?
Well, let's be clear here. At a time where we have inspectors general being fired, president taking a wrecking ball to checks and balances, people getting money from the COVID fund that are donors of the Republican National Committee, that are supporters of Donald Trump's campaign. At a time when all of that waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement is going on, Ron Johnson is using his power, his oversight authority, to effectively be the political hatchet man for the Donald Trump reelection campaign. This ignoring the bank heist in broad daylight that Donald Trump is perpetrating, Johnson's conducting a taxpayer-funded opposition research campaign against Vice President Biden. The vote that they're going to have today is meant to revive headlines of Hunter Biden and Burisma and try to make American people believe that something nefarious happened when, let's be very clear here, there is zero evidence at all that anything corruptive happened. This is nothing but conspiracy-driven Russian propaganda. And Senate Republicans, and it's not just Ron Johnson, it'll be Rand Paul, it'll be James Lankford, it'll be Mitt Romney who will be voting for this subpoena today, the first subpoena that this committee is even issuing in 2020. And it just shows what the playbook's going to be in 2020. It's a repeat of 2016. It's exactly what House Republicans did to Hillary Clinton with the Benghazi Select Committee. They believe then, as they do now, if they just say enough times, Hunter Biden, Burisma, just like they said, Hillary's emails in Benghazi, that it'll be enough to taint the campaign.
But Donny Deutsch, even with dirty politics, isn't there time, place, manner? I mean, what do the Democrats do with this? Is there an opportunity here?
I don't think the Democrats have to do anything. I think let the Republicans go down this strategic rabbit hole. You know, by June, there will be 113,000 people dead from the virus.
Exactly.
We know it's probably coming back in the fall. 30 million people out of jobs. Do they think the American voter is that stupid? Is that out of touch with their own needs and their own survival, that they think something about the other candidate's son in a business dealing has anything to do with what matters to them in life? That is so off base. And, you know, you can think about a voter. A voter is your husband, is your father, is your best friend, is your daughter, is your school teachers. They're not idiots. And we're in a very primal state right now where it's about people's survivals, where it's about people keeping their jobs, the very basic things that we get up in the morning and worry about. And to be going down this path, in addition to going back to the whole Obamagate thing, is stunningly moronic. And, you know, Donald Trump is 75 years old. He doesn't have a new bag of tricks. What got him elected the first time was the other, was the build a wall, was the Muslim ban, was the birther president, the black, the yellow, the Mexican. Ain't going to work this time. Too much other stuff on people's minds.
Jonathan Lemire, the president, just tweeted, breaking, Michigan sends absentee ballots to 7.7 million people ahead of primaries in the general election. This was done illegally and without authorization by a rogue Secretary of State. I will ask to hold up funding to Michigan if they want to go down this voter fraud path. What do you think?
Well, I think we're seeing here a real concern about the mail-in vote. The president touts the effort in Florida, which is where, of course, he votes now absentee. But in other states, he's very skeptical. And I think that we're seeing this is going to be a major storyline between now and November about the ability for Americans to vote in a time of pandemic, particularly if the virus comes back with a vengeance this fall. How can Americans safely vote? And it seems like Republicans are making an effort to make it harder in terms of mail-in votes. Kurt, my question is for you, although I will note briefly that if Donnie's fruit basket is a way of shading John Hallman's kitchen set, I'm all for it. Kurt, it does seem like that the Trump campaign is trying to recycle the playbook they used in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, the emails, this time with Joe Biden, with Hunter Biden being a big part of that. But isn't part of the problem, though, is that Hillary Clinton came into that campaign with much higher negatives than Hillary Clinton had, and that right now, among voters who have a negative opinion of both candidates, most of them favor Joe Biden. Unlike in 2016, voters who didn't like both candidates mostly broke for Donald Trump. So isn't this sort of a real uphill battle for the president to try to revive this particular strategy?
I think it is. And I think that you're correct here, Jonathan. Joe Biden comes into this campaign with not nearly the amount of baggage and residue that Hillary Clinton did. The reality is, no matter what you think about Joe Biden, and I can say this as a former Republican who heard this for years, the level of venom and angst that was directed at Hillary Clinton throughout her entire career will not come close for what Joe Biden's going to have to experience and overcome. And so Republicans are really they're overplaying their hand, but it's a symptom of how desperate things are for them. That as COVID-19 continues to just annihilate this country, and the president's incompetency is on display every single day in ways we could not have possibly have imagined, that they have to retreat to this tired old playbook and really try to run the Hillary campaign against Joe Biden. And the reality is Joe Biden has a much larger reservoir of trust with the American people. He is someone, no matter what you feel on the political spectrum, you believe that Joe Biden is an honorable man. You believe that he is authentic, that he is credible, that he is believable and trustworthy. Donald Trump doesn't have any of that.
And it's context. I mean, at the death rate, Donnie, that you pointed out, the context that everybody is living in is that they are either afraid that someone they love or they themselves could get this virus, or they know someone who has passed from it. I mean, we are in the middle of a massive human catastrophe, and the president and sort of his so-called stooges just keep going after all these crazy ideas. I think they stand out to people worse than perhaps the Ukraine scandal or the Mueller probe, which seemed to feel like to a lot of Americans white noise because they were busy worried about their day-to-day lives. This pandemic impacts their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I mentioned this before. You can lie to people about a phone call. You can lie to people about the Ukraine. You can lie to people about a meeting. You can't lie to people about their health, about their survival. People will react in a visceral way, and you're seeing that across the board in all the polls. What I find interesting also right now as we reopen up, when I see in Texas, in North Carolina, and Arizona, it's spiking. The last week was the most dramatic week for deaths and cases of corona, yet we're opening. I'm still a little confused. I still haven't heard from any of the doctors, from any of the experts, how this jives. And I'm just curious how the next few weeks play out, because in areas of the country that are opening, we're getting our biggest spikes. I don't understand that.
Donny Deutsch, Kurt Bardella, and Jonathan Lemire, thank you all very much.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.